Good morning. Today is the second Sunday of the month when I'm regularly scheduled to deliver a Dharma message to and today, of course, we observe three events: Valentine's Day, Shotsuki Hoyo, and most important, we observe Nehan-e, or Nirvana Day service. Nirvana Day service, of course, is when we observe the passing of Siddhartha Gautama, otherwise known as Shakyamuni Buddha, the founder of the Buddhist faith. Also note that February is Black History Month, and many of the civil rights that we enjoy today as Asian Americans and other minorities people are because of the struggles of our black brothers and sisters. There's much more I can say about Black History Month, but we'll have to leave it at that. Valentine's Day, of course, began with a message of love and friendship. Saint Valentine was an early Christian martyr who was executed by the Roman Empire. Originally, people would send handwritten notes to people, their significant others, but these days we simply buy a card from Walgreens or CVS or Safeway. Recently, love has gotten quite a bit expensive. We buy expensive candies from Godiva or other expensive chocolatiers and share them with our significant others. Flowers are also nice. Perhaps if you have forgotten, you are planning a romantic dinner after the service somewhere in Mill Valley. COVID-19 have altered these traditions, but love endures. And the love we have for our ancestors is present and encapsulated in our Shotsuki Hoyo. These monthly memorial services are time to remember our families, members who have preceded us in death. When we take time to off our busy schedules to remember, we honor our ancestors, and this is how we show our respect. Shotsuki Hoyo is a reminder of the importance of family. Families fight, of course, but they have good times also. I remember my father telling me that this is the meaning of family. We have good times. We help each other in times of stress and troubles. And he says, I want you to remember the good times we have together, because this is what family means. This is a lesson, a legacy of my father to me. But the real reason that we have come together today is Nirvana Day service, Nehan-e. Nehan-e is tomorrow, the 15th of February, the day that Siddhartha Gautama, otherwise known as Shakyamuni Buddha, enters into the great nirvana. So today, I want to spend the rest of the morning in remembering Shakyamuni Buddha, and I want to end his legacy, and I want to do this first by showing you a picture or painting of the nirvana scene. After that, I have a short map, a graphic of a map of the spread of Buddhism, and after that, I want to speak to you very briefly on the spiritual legacy of Shakyamuni Buddha. And if we have time, I want to show you some photographs or pictures of our trip to Kushinagara, where the Buddha passed away I guess it's 2 years ago, in February, late January, early February 2019. So here is a picture of the great decease. That is the nirvana scene, and this picture portrays the moment that Shakyamuni Buddha passes away. And here around him and gathered are the great bodhisattvas, kings and queens, and the great arhats that are weeping, and animals. And over on the far right, upper right, you see a woman. This is Mahamaya. Mahamaya is Siddhartha Gautama's birth mother, who passed away 7 days after his giving birth to the future Buddha. And according to Buddhist lore, he goes up and says farewell to his mother, who he had not seen or felt and seen and spoken to for some 80 years before he enters into what we call a parinirvana, the great nirvana. Here is a photo of the upper body of Siddhartha Gautama, and we see on the top left the great bodhisattvas and some of his more arhats, his lay disciples. And here is a picture of 4 beings: Samattabhadra, Fugen Bosatsu, Monju, Manjushri, Kannon Bodhisattva. And we have on the lower right a arhat, a lay disciple named Davakura, who is demonstrating or expressing his great grief. Davakura Bodhi, for those who you probably do not know him, he's not a very popular figure in Buddhist lore, but he is known for his great generosity. A disciple of the Buddha, of course. He lives to 160, a ripe old age, even in the Buddha's time. And here we have the other fourth great bodhisattva, Garba Bodhisattva, otherwise known as Jizo Bodhisattva, Jizo Bosatsu. When Shakyamuni is about to pass away, he asks Jizo, "Can you stick around on this earth and help beings in suffering until the future Buddha, that is Maitreya, comes? Because this lapse, after I go, there's a lapse before the next Buddha comes, and people here are in dire need of the Dharma." So even in passing, Shakyamuni Buddha thought of our sentient beings who are here in suffering and their need to hear the Dharma. So he asked Jizo Bosatsu. Now Jizo Bosatsu has all of the qualifications. That is, he has mastered all the disciplines and attained great wisdom. And he is in actuality equal to Shakyamuni Buddha, and he can get his just reward of all his effort and enter the great nirvana. But because of his great compassion and his obligation to Shakyamuni Buddha and his obligations to suffering beings, he decides to remain and traverse the 6 realms. Jizo Bosatsu is also the patron bodhisattva for aborted children. And here we have Reverend. Reverend is the younger brother of Sariputra. Sariputra is one of the Buddha's 10 great disciples, known for his great wisdom. If you recall, Nalanda University, there's a big stupa in the center of the university, and that stupa is dedicated to Sariputra. And Nalanda, the village of Nalanda, is Sariputra's hometown. And here we have another Arhat, Kapina. Kapina is an Arhat, and he is destined to become a Buddha. But these Arhats, according to this picture, is in great grief, as opposed to the great Bodhisattvas that we saw, who are in, what should I say, not grieving because they understand fully the transient nature of human life and death. Like life, death is part of life, and they fully understand the course of human existence, while the Arhats, like Revata and Kapina, do not fully understand the transient nature of life, so that's why they are in great grief. And here we have the rulers of the day have come and offer their respects. And here we have the animals withering in grief to the passing of the great teacher. And finally, I just want to show you a picture of Mahamaya. Before the Buddha passes into great nirvana, never to be born again, he goes up and he meets his mother, who he had not seen. Well, she had not seen him since her birth 80 years ago, and he offers her a gift, that is the gift of the Dharma. He preaches to her, and after he preaches to her, he enters his great nirvana. This is a sign of the filiality of Shakyamuni Buddha towards his birth mother. And finally, we have a map. And Buddhism spreads through Asia, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia, throughout India, Southeast Asia, and up to China, and up to Japan, and from Japan it crosses the Pacific, first to Hawaii and then to continental United States. I just want to mention that Sumatra was a great Buddhist center at one time. It's all Muslim now, and so was Central Asia. But students from China would go to Sumatra to study Sanskrit because India was too far away. But I want to speak about the legacy of Shakyamuni Buddha today. And here in Mill Valley, 2,500 years later, we are listening to the Dharma. And Buddhism is the common denominator or the common thread in all of these countries which Buddhism traversed or had impacted, at least from the Hindu Kush and from Afghanistan to Kyoto, Japan, and to Indonesia, and all points in between. And the civilizations that hosted Buddhism were at its heights when Buddhism flourished. So we can be very proud of that. And we can be proud of the fact that the Dharma spread and maintained itself with little recourse to violence and war. And this is remarkable, and we should be very proud of that. The Buddha had little resources. He was a mendicant, homeless, who begged for his food, slept in caves or huts among the forest beasts or under the sky. And all he had were his moral resources, his personal integrity, and his great compassion. And if you ever visited Lumbini, where he was born, Kapalivastu, even today, well, it was part of a major trade route from Taxila in eastern India to Rajgir, where the Buddha spent a lot of his time. But today, when you have a chance to visit Lumbini, it's really a remote area on the foothills, at the foothills of the Himalayas. On reading the Buddha's life, the early account of the Buddha's life, I was amazed at how many mistakes he made, especially when he was forming and organizing the Sangha. But he readily admitted to his mistakes and said, "Let's not do this again," and moves on. One of the biggest mistakes he made when he returned to Kapilavastu after, I think, the 8th, 7th year after his enlightenment, he gets a message from messenger Chana and some other person while he was staying in Rajgir at the bamboo grove. He said, your father is getting old. He wants to see you." And so he heads back, a filial child, he heads back and he goes back to Kapilavastu, but because he's a mendicant, he can no longer enter his home, Kapilavastu, and the father builds him a monastery called Kudan, and we visited Kudan. But anyway, Yasudhara, if you remember, was the Buddha's spouse or wife, loving wife. She sends Rahula to him and says, "Ask your father, where is my inheritance?" And what does the Buddha do? He ordains the kid, Rahula, and Yasodhara is in great grief. "First you left me, and now you take my son." After hearing this, the Buddha says, "From now on, a person can be a monk and be ordained and enter my order only at the age of 20, when they can make their own decision. Prior to that, he must have the permission of his parents." And this practice is still observant today in Buddhist countries in Southeast Asia. The king Suddhodana was upset when the monk Rahula was ordained. He said, "Now I have no heir. How will my kingdom of Kapilavastu, the Shaka clan, continue?" So these were some of the mistakes. This was one major mistake that the Buddha had made, and he tried to rectify it. Another big mistake he made was when his stepmother, Mahaprajapati, the younger sister of Queen Maya, wanted to become ordained and enter the order. So she travels from Kapilavastu to Rajgir, the bamboo grove, and pleads with the Buddha. And then his cousin Ananda intercedes and speaks on behalf of his aunt, because they were all related. Ananda was first cousin of Siddhartha Gautama, and they played together as a child. And Ananda says, "Why can't your mother, your stepmother, my aunt, become ordained in the order?" Is it because women have no capacity for enlightenment? And the Buddha says, no, this is not true. Then why? So 3 times Ananda asked, and 3 times the Buddha demurred. And finally, on the 3rd time, he says, okay, we will admit women into the order. And this is how we have the Bhikshuni Sangha, the ordained women. He ordained women into his, while he was alive during his lifetime. So the Buddha was persuaded by logic and reason. And he was, in this sense, a great individual. Can be persuaded to change his mind if you have the right arguments, and persuaded to alter his rules when he made mistakes. So the Buddha, on his deathbed, is approached by one last person. Pingia is an older man, and he says to the Buddha, I am old, weak, my color is gone, my eyesight is not clear, my hearing is faint. Do not let me perish, confused. Teach me the Dharma, that I might understand the way things are. And the Dharma, the Buddha says, abandon greed and craving. This will end your pain and your suffering. And this was his last disciple, his last conversion while he was alive. And finally, the Buddha says, enough, I'm tired, I will now enter nirvana. And he says, I have taught you everything I have known. Everything. Death, all things that are conditioned. To be born as a human being means that you will eventually pass away. And for me too, I'm the Buddha, but I was born a human being, and it's my time to pass away. And the Buddha says, the true Buddha is not the human body, it is the enlightenment. This is the true Buddha. It is the enlightenment and the practice of enlightenment that is the true Buddha. And this is the truth of the Dharma, and it is the practice of the Dharma. And he passes away, and he goes up, and the earth shook as his birth in 7 different ways, and the sala blossoms bloomed in dead of winter and rained sala flowers on the Buddha. But the Buddha, before he passes away, he has one great task to do, and it is to visit his mother. If you remember when we were in Saravasti, where the Buddha spent some 25 rainy seasons, we ascended a hill. And this is where the Buddha jumped up to the Tushya heaven and ascended the Tushya heaven to meet his mother and offer her the gift of the Dharma. So that's all I have to say about the Shakyamuni Buddha. But he left a legacy of his life and his Dharma. He was an extremely honest man, and you can change his mind by reason and logic. And he was a man who was able to admit his mistakes and move on. I believe his wish for us as devotees of the Buddha Dharma is that the Dharma will nourish us. And we are nourished by the Dharma if we take refuge in his teachings, in the life of his Buddha, the example of his life, his Dharma, and of course our Sangha. And by observing the precepts, that is, observing the Buddhist life, by sharing this wonderful treasure that we have all inherited with a loving heart and caring for others. That's all I have to say. I just want to very quickly go through the visit. This is Ramabar Stupa, where the Buddha was cremated. And I understand, according to Buddhist legend, part of his remains are here. And this is the Parinirvana Sutra stupa where Shakyamuni Buddha passes away. And this is inside the temple. And when they were excavating that image of the Buddha was located on the excavation grounds, and it was transported into the site, into this temple site. And this is a Thai temple. I just wanted to show this because the former king of Thailand repatriated the ashes that he had received. His grandfather Chulalongkorn had received, I believe, from the British government. And he said the Buddha should return to the land of his birth. And here the ashes were returned, and it's in it's in Kushinagara, and there's a Thai temple there that honor the remains of the Buddha. And this last slide is the relic distribution site. When the Buddha was passed away, his ashes were collected and they were divided in 8 portions. And this nondescript area is where the distribution took place. So thank you very much, and I hope February is a good month for Marin. And I wrote a short article that Nancy Okamoto has posted on the website, so you can read that, and there's a little bit more detail there. Next month is March. It's Women History Month. The 8th of March, I think that's Monday, is the International Day of the Woman. And March 3rd is Girls' Day, Momonoseku. So I will speak about in March my next Dharma message on Kujo Takeko, who is a genuine Jodo Shinshu heroine. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.